drama. Episode 6. The Haunting of Sunderland House. Part 1 of 4. Written by Jamie Evans and Benton Hodges.
What are you doing sneaking up on me like that?
Sneaking up? You're passed out drunk in front of the telly. Look, you dropped your beer.
Sorry. I'd spent so long reading through all these reference texts I thought my eyes were about to stop bleeding, so I decided to try and relax with a video. That turned out not to be possible, seeing as your selection of viewing fare is what I believe kids today refer to as nightmare fuel.
What were you watching?
Evil Dead 2. Oh my, there's 2 of these things.
There's 3, actually, plus the remake and the series.
You're telling me people enjoy this?
You're telling me that you were scared? You were literally attacked by a deranged man dressed as a clown a few weeks ago.
I wasn't scared. The logical inconsistencies, that's what's scary. Please explain to me the mechanics of how one with no prior knowledge of surgery or engineering attached a working chainsaw to their severed wrist.
That's your problem with it. The logic. I presented the court Evidence B from your own back catalogue. Less than a week ago, we literally helped 2 thought forms manifest physically and break free from their master before then winding up trapped in a strange other realm inside an ancient prism.
Well, when you say it like that, it sounds crazy.
I mean, open your mind, dude. Seriously, come on.
Actually, my mind is plenty open. Look at this. This is the town of Taos in New Mexico. Small place, artsy. Dennis Hopper used to live there. But that isn't their biggest claim to fame.
What is their biggest claim to fame?
They have a hum.
A hum?
They have a hum! First reported in the 1990s, roughly 2% of the town's population reported hearing a hum that seemed to be coming from all around them with no discernible source. That led me to a website on the lap thingy that theorised that the Taos hum was the result of government experiments, which sounds mad.
Unless you literally know any history of the American government.
Precisely. We know that the signal is broadcast on and off, suggesting somebody is choosing when it broadcasts. And we also know that only a select few have heard it.
James, that's great.
Yes. Well, I've sort of hit a dead end again.
You know what you need? You need to take your mind off it.
Take my mind off it? Abigail, you do understand that we're up against a clock, don't you?
Yes, well, forget me. I've got another case. Somebody else needs our help.
Another one of your crackpots on the email line? No, thank you.
You're going to like this one.
I highly doubt that.
You are so going to want to solve this one.
Abigail, I still have 10 more books to read, and I'm waiting for a call on a potential lead about that old radio factory we visited.
I've got a ghost that has not only identified a focus, but has made a very real death threat against somebody.
And then we have to look for the... I'm sorry, what?
I've got a ghost that's made a clear, publicly witnessed death threat against a man. It's even set a deadline. 3 days.
A ghost making death threats. That's not possible.
I love it when you say that.
I don't understand what he's doing here.
He wants the opportunity to open his mind a little bit more after everything we've seen, and I thought, couldn't hurt us to have an official presence with a badge come with us.
If you wanted a badge, I could have faked as a badge, no problem. Knock knock, Agent Beauregard at your service.
Agent Beauregard?
What, you don't think I could pull it off?
Look, I just wanted to approach it with an open mind, that's all. I've always been a skeptic before, but everything with the signal and that mess at Vanderburg Academy... Honestly, I'm a little lost with this whole supernatural thing right now. I never thought my first time using a sniper rifle I'd be aiming it at a deranged teenage witch and her army of... What were those things called again?
Tulpas. Thought forms.
Right. Not that that gun did anything to them. Those other 2 kids ended up saving themselves with the power of love.
Don't say it like that.
Why?
Because it's ridiculous. Sounds like it was made by Disney or something.
I think it's good that he's opening his mind to other possibilities. I'm glad he's coming.
I know you hate me, Mr. Hunter, and I promise I'm not here to get in your way or to interfere or anything like that. I just want to learn.
I don't hate you.
You don't?
No, of course not. I just find you annoying.
Ah, I see. Look, if witches and tulpas are real, what about, like, vampires? Or goblins? Holy shit, what about aliens?
No, that's it. I absolutely draw the line at aliens.
You don't believe in aliens?
Do I believe there could be life somewhere out there in the incalculably vast, ever-expanding universe filled with an unfathomable amount of planets? Of course. Do I believe in little green men in flying saucers who have a preoccupation with exploring the human anal cavity? No.
Fucking hell, what about Santa Claus?
I drew the line too soon.
I really thought you were coming round to all of this.
I am willing to accept that there's still a lot to learn about the darkest depths of the mind and the unexplored corners of the globe, but one supernatural occurrence does not automatically confirm the existence of others. That's why we investigate and don't accept everything at face value.
Remember Gus?
The imaginary friend that Molly Saunderson and her son both saw. You guys solved that case though, right?
For the most part. But we were never able to adequately explain why she and her son both had the same imaginary friend, despite never discussing it with one another.
I gave you a perfectly adequate explanation for it, just as I have for this case today.
Which is?
People lie.
Sometimes your cynicism is unbearable.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just got a headache coming on.
Abigail.
Never mind that. Look, there's the house there, by the lake.
The family who had reported the supposed haunting on Abigail's tip line were called the Sunderlands. They had apparently lived in the property for a mere 3 months. The Sunderland house was certainly beautiful, if one could see beyond the decrepitude which threatened to engulf it. Tall old English architecture was flanked by ornate wings. A pair of chimneys choked with veins of ivy and wide windows spied in all directions of the house. The winter sun was low in the sky already, backlighting the home such that it appeared as a dark and ominous silhouette. It was certainly the right sort of setting for a ghost story, seemingly torn from the imaginations of Shirley Jackson or Susan Hill.
Miss Corbin, I presume?
That's right. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Sunderland.
I'm sure it would be under more pleasant circumstances.
Of course. Sorry.
This is the infamous James Hunter, I presume. I hear you're a big expert on these matters.
Abigail.
It wasn't me.
Are they here?
Ah, I apologise for this, Mr. Hunter.
Apologise?
Oh, it is him. I'm so glad you could come. I love your podcast, Abigail, and I'm a big fan of yours too, Mr. Hunter.
What?
Apologies. I didn't see you standing there at the back. You are?
My name's Dan Cowell. I'm a police officer down in Greenvale.
The police?
Police officer? Oh, my. We didn't really want to bother the police.
Oh, it's no bother at all, sir. I'm off the clock. Consider this my own personal curiosity.
Hold on. You think your life is in danger and you don't want the police involved?
What can police do against an evil spirit? Tie us up in paperwork and throw us in the loony bin? Police have no use in paranormal investigation. Isn't that what you wrote in your book, The Banshee of Bradford?
Recent events have led me to reconsider my stance.
They have?
You've read the books?
Every word he ever put down. I'm his #1 fan.
Please, come inside. Let us explain what's going on.
#1 fan, my ass.
How? How is it that all these attractive women are fans of yours?
Was Rebecca attractive? I hadn't noticed.
Seriously? How are you doing it?
Don't you know? Women prefer bad boys.
Bloody hell, this is huge. Oh, sorry.
No need to apologise. It is rather a lot, isn't it? Did my wife explain any of the history of the house over the phone?
Only that it's pre-Victorian.
Indeed. It's been renovated a few times in the intervening years, but yes, the house is at least 200 years old.
Must have been worth a lot of money.
James, that's rude.
I'm just asking. What do you do for a living, Mr. Sunderland?
I run a series of warehouses for a big electrical manufacturer.
Uh-huh. Note, access to complex electronics.
Shh! There's a lot of history in this house. I did some digging around in the local library and found out that before this property was built, the land had a pretty dodgy reputation.
Dodgy?
The lake out back is actually man-made, you know, designed to provide an overspill for the Bolton River. According to the history books, there were several accidents during construction and, in total, 3 men died and 2 young boys.
Oh, wow.
That isn't all my daughter found. She was also able to find brief mentions of a tragedy that took place in the house around the turn of the century.
The owner back then was a man named Henry Morton Jenkins. I couldn't find too much on him, aside from the fact that he was fairly well off and that he lived here in the house with his wife Caroline and their 2 children. I wasn't able to find names for the children, though.
What happened?
Well, as the story goes, Henry was quite the philanderer, often found in the company of women other than his wife. One day, Henry became ill. For the next few weeks, he became sicker and sicker, eventually withdrawing from public life. 2 weeks after that, he was reported dead by Caroline. Police eventually determined that she'd been slowly poisoning her husband, fed up of his adultery. The coroner concluded that Henry had died a very long and painful death.
House comes complete with a well-rehearsed origin story.
Are you accusing us of fraud?
Dad, it's okay. Mr. Hunter is an expert in the paranormal. He must always approach a case with scepticism. Isn't that right, Mr. Hunter?
Correct.
Can you tell us exactly how the haunting has been manifesting?
Of course. It began with strange noises at first. Creaking in the night. The banging of pipes. Yes, you don't need to say it, Mr. Hunter. I, too, put these down as being simply the regular sounds of an old house, but then the sounds changed, became more like a rattling, almost as though something inside the pipes was fighting to get out. I don't know about you, Mr. Hunter, but I've never heard of anything like that before.
Your wife mentioned a problem with stones.
Stones, like small pebbles, really. They began appearing in places you wouldn't expect them. In particular, the drains outside have a tendency to fill with them and cause flooding. My wife, Courtney, was awoken the other night by the sound of pebbles hitting our bedroom window.
Did you hear them too?
No. I was away on business at the time. She and Rebecca searched the area afterwards, but couldn't find where they had come from. I didn't hear about it until they called me in. A panic. There was also a problem with a window in the spare room. Let me show you.
David Sunderland led us to a small box room at the rear of the house. It was much smaller than every other room we'd seen so far, and by far the least impressive. The dingy wallpaper on the walls looked like it hadn't been changed since sometime in the 1970s, and I could see black mould forming in the upper corners of the room. A single window looked out onto the lake, and a deep chill filled the room.
We call this the spare room, but as you can see, we don't use it for anything, and I wouldn't really ever consider having guests stay here. We believe this was the room that Caroline confined her husband to in his final days before he succumbed to the poison.
Wow.
Based on what?
Excuse me?
Do you have any evidence for this claim, or are you plucking it from thin air?
I find your attitude quite detestable, sir.
And I yours. Believe it or not, I'm actually a very busy man, and I do not appreciate having my time wasted.
Nor me. My daughter assures me you are the expert. You show up here with your sleeves unbuttoned, your tie loose, and I do believe that's a faint smell of whiskey I detect on your breath. It leads me to question your credentials.
Okay, let's not start a fight.
We're sorry, Mr. Sunderland. I promise you we want to help. James is just a bit overly sceptical. Apologise, James.
No. Ow! What did you do that for? Okay, I'm sorry. Please continue.
The historical record in the library has a few pages of what they claim is Henry Morton Jenkins' diary that he kept during his final weeks. It's pretty chilling to read, actually, in that he talks about being able to see the lake from his room, which means it has to be one of the rooms on the back of the house. This room feels cold all of the time, and the window opens on its own from time to time.
It just slides up all on its own.
Yes, I've seen it happen with my own eyes.
May I take some readings?
Go ahead.
Whoa!
I wasn't even touching it.
I told you, something strange is happening here.
What do you think, James? Ah!
I did it again!
Strange.
Now will you take this haunting seriously?
It's odd, I'll give you that, but I'm not prepared to declare it Borley Rectory just yet, and I'm still sceptical about that.
Borley Rectory, a haunting so real it must be fake. From your article in Spirit World issue 44.
Yes, you really do know my work.
Like I said, I'm your #1 fan.
All right, Annie Wilkes. Jeez.
Well, Mr. Hunter, I may just have something that will change your mind about that. Let's go downstairs. I want to introduce you to the rest of my family first.
Play nice.
I always play nice.
Honey, here, let me help you with those.
Thank you. Oh, we have company. Is this?
Yes, Abigail Corbin, James Hunter, and this is Dan Cowell. He's a police officer over in Greenvale.
The police? Oh, well, thank heavens this is being taken seriously.
I'm actually off the clock. This is more of a personal interest.
Oh, I don't mind. I'm just glad to have people taking this awful business seriously. Oh, dear. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. Let me just put the shopping away first.
Oh, here, let me help you.
Thank you. What are your thoughts, Mr. Hunter? Do you know what happened to her?
Her, as in Rebecca. I thought that the ghost had been threatening your husband.
You haven't showed them yet?
I was just about to before you arrived home.
Showed us what?
Come through to the other room, please.
David led us through into a sitting room. 2 very comfortable-looking sofas faced a huge flat-screen television. Plugged into the television was a laptop computer.
I was never too worried when it was just noises and thrown pebbles. However, this spirit or entity, it began targeting my daughter. She found it difficult to sleep, and when she did, she would wake up screaming from vivid nightmares. We'd rush to her room sometimes and find her shaking, convulsing.
Almost like someone having a fit.
These have only happened at night,
Well, so far, yes.
and nobody else in the house has experienced these strange seizures.
No, never. I started getting up some cameras around the house. Nothing much, just cheap handhelds with a basic night vision mode on them. Last night, the footage captured this.
David clicked a video file on his computer, and the television began to play the grainy night vision footage of a store-bought camera. At first it showed an empty hall. A black dot zipped across the lens, and I realised it was a fly or similar insect.
This is the upstairs corridor. Now watch the door on the left at the end. That's the door that leads to the staircase for the attic.
That's my room.
After what felt like several minutes, the door David had indicated began to swing open slowly. The camera's built-in microphone only faintly picked up the sound of the squeaking hinges. Slowly, a slender figure in a white nightgown emerged from the door. Rebecca. She moved slowly out into the hallway and stopped for at least 60 seconds, just sort of swaying gently on the spot. Eventually she began to move again, moving with slow and shuffling steps, dragging her feet across the wooden floorboards, almost as if she were in a trance. She made her way up the corridor, and as she came closer to the camera, I could see that her eyes were open, but there was no movement there. Her vision was fixed dead ahead, the top lids hanging heavy as they would over the eyes of somebody who was very tired.
Is she sleepwalking?
I think so. Have you ever done this before?
Never.
Rebecca stopped at the rightmost door closest to the camera. Once again she appeared to freeze for a while, just swaying back and forth. The image that was conjured in my head was of a marionette awaiting its puppeteer to pull on its strings. Finally, though, she raised one hand and depressed the handle of the door, moving inside. David closed the video and opened a second file. This video was taken from a different camera, placed inside the master bedroom. Mr. and Mrs. Sunderland were fast asleep, unaware of their daughter entering the room.
Oh, it sends shivers down my spine watching this.
Rebecca reached the foot of the bed and stood there, seemingly motionless. She stood there for a long time, nearly a whole hour, according to David Sunderland. He scrubbed through the video to the next interesting part. All of a sudden, Rebecca cocked her head back and let out a blood-curdling screech like those of the fabled banshees. In the bed, Mr. and Mrs. Sunderland jolted awake, terrified. Rebecca began to thrash wildly, falling to the floor where she began to twist and convulse in positions that hardly seemed possible. David Sunderland fought to restrain his daughter whilst Courtney Sunderland fussed about, crying and wailing. Rebecca was screaming, but it was difficult to make out in the commotion.
What is she saying?
Confess.
Confess? Confess what?
That's just it. I don't know. I don't remember any of this happening. The entire night is black in my memory.
So, this thing, whatever it is affecting Rebecca. I don't understand. I thought it was Mr. Sunderland who'd been threatened.
That came later. Unfortunately, we don't have that on tape. I tried to put Rebecca back to bed after she'd calmed down a bit. She didn't really seem to wake up. It was like she was still asleep. I laid her in bed when she lashed out at me. She clawed right down my chest.
That looks painful.
She scratched at me and hissed, 3 days, confession or death. But the voice, that was not my daughter's voice. Some thing was speaking through her.
Okay, we need to slow down here. There are a lot of conclusions being drawn here without any proper investigation.
You have to admit it's scary stuff.
I agree, but we haven't even seen any evidence of an apparition yet. And you lot are jumping right to demonic possession. Don't pass go, don't collect £200. Cases of possession are incredibly rare. They usually turn out to be a case of the possessed lying, or they're feeding off hysteria whipped up by their families.
Are you saying that my daughter is lying?
No, I'm saying that she could be lying. You all could be lying.
This is ridiculous.
I'm sorry, did you just want me to say what you want to hear? Is that why you hired me?
The other man felt our case sounded very interesting. He had no doubts at all.
Wait a second. Other man?
I wasn't aware you'd hired another investigator.
Well, we thought it prudent to have a second opinion readily available, especially given the seriousness of the case.
Whomever you hired, I promise you they are a charlatan. They will tell you what you want to hear, and they will take your money without solving anything.
And you've been so trustworthy yourself. The entire short time you've been here, you've been rude and dismissive.
That's me. I'm rude, I'm dismissive, but I'm also thorough, and I know what I'm talking about. Look, who else did you get? Please tell me who has lined up to take your money.
Speak of the devil, he's here now.
Let me see this joker. Oh no. You have got to be kidding me.
Starring Jamie Evans as James Hunter and Isabella Barbieri as Abigail Corbin. With special guest Luke Hunter as Dan Cowell. Also featuring Megan Condon, Jim Carter, Madeline Carter. Narration by David Anthony Green. Opening and closing themes by James Crow. Haunted, the audio drama, is created by Jamie Evans, with all episodes produced and directed by Jamie Evans and Benton Hodges. Audio engineering by Benton Hodges, Charles Topping and Jamie Evans. Haunted is a production of Impala Films and is recorded at Free Sprite Media Studios, with special thanks to Duncan Newham for equipment support. Thank you for listening to this audio presentation. Come back next week for the next terrifying chapter of Haunted, the audio drama.
Hi, this is Jamie Evans.
And Benton Hodges. We're the producers of Haunted, the audio drama.
We hope that you've been enjoying the show, and we encourage you to keep track of our goings-on by following our social media accounts.
We've got a growing fan community who enjoy sharing theories, fan art, and generally discussing the show. Plus, it's a great way for you to keep up with all the latest news about Haunted and our future projects.
Follow us on Twitter at The Impala Films, on Instagram at Haunted Audio Drama, all one word, no capitals, or you can find us on Facebook at Impala Revolution.
Enjoy the show and hungry for more? You can find us on Patreon at Impala Films, where you can donate to the show and get rewards such as early access to episodes and a behind-the-scenes podcast that goes through the myths and legends that inspired Haunted.
Lastly, please consider leaving a review on your podcast app of choice. It really does help us reach more listeners. Thank you so much to every one of you for listening to our little show. It means so much to us.
The reception has totally blown us away.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.